Okay, so here's my question about like this type of music, right?
Yeah.
So we used to do stuff with Pabst with some stuff in the death metal scene,
Here,
and
see
like
if you can grab.
check. Oh, that's nice.
Sorry, what were you
Oh,
saying?
so the death metal scene. So
I didn't know you were into death metal.
I'm not, but curiosity, you never know where it will take you.
Yeah.
So you have these people, right? And it's like that's someone's real voice. It's a thing. But I always wonder, it's like, what happens, when you're like ordering a pizza or something? Like, I'll take the pepperoni.
Death metal in real life,
Yeah,
it's like doesn't exist.
because it's someone's real voice, and it's not like easy to do either.
Maybe we should start the show.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we have been talking for.
Anthony's surprised that we have a theme song.
There's like an intro here.
I mean, welcome to the Full Grain Podcast. You didn't think we'd have a fancy intro song to bring you here, but thanks for coming, man.
Intro written by Phil.
Yeah, we wrote it. It was a lot more elaborate and like very extreme, kind of like Voljarta death metal we were just listening.
So it's like a very nice like soothing death metal intro.
If I'm honest, it started very death metal. I was thinking Stranger Things plus death metal, so it was like very synthy and death metal. And Nick's like, I think you might want to.
You also sent it to me, and it was like 1 minute and 15 seconds. And I'm like, I think we need like maybe 8 seconds of this.
We were able to pull it back pretty well, so it worked out.
That's good.
Well, hey, thanks for coming, man. And you brought your special treats. Do you want to tell everybody what's on the table here?
I did for you guys, so that's the great thing.
I don't think Nick. Are you familiar with this, Nick?
I'm not. Tell me.
All right.
So normally it's a little too early to be drinking. I know there's always it's 5 o'clock somewhere, but I think it's like 11 something right now.
It's noon right now.
Oh, actually, that's not that bad. But anyways, let's pretend it was like 9 in the morning, and you'd be like, yeah, it's kind of inappropriate to like start drinking something. But the great thing is that it's the first multi-ABV variety pack, the first inclusive drinking system, a 0%, a 5%, and an 8%. So, Nick, that means you can drink the 0 right now.
Nice.
Did you bring multiple flavors? Because I find, we were just talking about this before we started the show. I was talking about flavors of seltzer, and for me, my brain goes to citrus first if I want a seltzer something. And when we met, and I had never tried the product before, you said, no, you have to try black cherry first, mango second, lemon lime third, which was incredible. Because I would have picked those in reverse order.
Well, and that's what's so amazing when you actually look at, flavor strategy, flavor hierarchy. So black cherry across the board is the highest indexing flavor.
Tell us how you came about this. I want to go backwards in time for your professional life, but maybe we start with this first. Where are you at right now with System?
Well, so the great thing is, we're about 6 months in to System really being live and out there, and that's been the whole piece. Is that we developed this during the pandemic, and the whole piece was that you're starting to look and see drinking habits shifting, and a lot of kind of like larger societal pieces coming into play, and this whole thought of like, as wild as it sounds, you're like, how has nobody put 3 different alcohol pieces together? I mean, literally, and it's kind of like, well, because it's always different flavors, right?
Well, after you introduced it to me, you said, hey, go down to Voss Foremost, which was next door, buy a case and take it home, because I had some people at my home that evening, and we tried it. I wanted everybody to test it out, see what they thought. And surprisingly, the 0% went first and the 8% went last. Maybe people aren't just going hard at our age.
Well, no, and I think that's the big piece to me. I always think about so throughout this process, right? This was all literally like insight driven. So we're insight being like things that we're seeing in our day-to-day life, but also being like qualitative and quantitative. I'm just curious in general about some data pieces. So one of the pieces that we found was that the height of U.S. binge drinking being like, more than like 3 to 4 drinks during an occasion, like that's binge drinking? You're like, okay, well, now I understand why college and, some other times where the word was actually 1999. So I was like, oh, great, when I was in high school. So that's why, college and everything subsequent, because that was normalized.
That's a new thing? The binge drinking isn't
so the height,
relatively new?
The height of U.S. binge drinking was in 1999.
So the most people doing
Yes.
it? Okay.
Yeah. But
Is
so
it-
what
okay.
I'm saying is this: so the U.S. drinks, different than borderline like any other country, in the world, in the sense that, we've normalized quick and mass consumption, because a lot of, you start to travel abroad and you see like, oh yeah, drinking is paced out, throughout the day at times, right? Well, you'll have a, glass of wine or two with lunch, and it's not this like mass consumption where you need to drink as much as possible in a short time frame, which at times, is normalized in American culture. So that's it is shifting right now. And it kind of ties into a lot of larger like societal trends, with this kind of like better for you component. And then also some interesting pieces of like the onset of technology too. So I always think about this when I say onset of technology, I sound like a really old person. If you were in college, right, before you literally had like video cameras in your pocket, which sounds kind of crazy. I mean, I can remember literally when I was I think, well, question for both of you guys. When did you get your first cell phone? How old were you? Can you remember?
You go first, Phil.
Oh, I know this is
I think it was probably 16. I mean, cell phones weren't a huge deal when I was growing up. However, my dad was a salesman, so he's always on the road. He had that huge like
yes. Oh,
brick
yep.
cell
Yep.
phone. So I think we were sort of the next step after the car phone,
Mm-hmm.
which is like those Nokia little guys.
My first car was my grandmother's old car, and there was a car phone in
Just
it.
in the car.
So
yeah.
it was like I had a cell phone, but it was in my car. And it was my car, so I could call
There
you
was
from
no
my car.
no 4K video on that
There
one.
was no. I do remember getting the first phone that I got that could take a video, and I was like, "This is the dumbest thing. There's no future in this."
But the whole thing is that when you have a video camera in your pocket, now it's like, oh, instead of a story, it's something that can be shared with your friends and anybody instantaneously. And so it's kind of like, yeah, that's not really cool if something, if you like pass out in an alley or whatever it is that you do. So there's all these kind of like bigger things that come into play. And also, again, just with the kind of what they call like better for you, the concept of like health conscious. You look at, again, the rise of non-alcoholic beer, which, I mean, up until literally 3 years ago, you'd be like, yeah, it's no duels or something, right? And it'd be I mean, not the most normal thing to be at a party and see a 21-year-old drinking, duels, right? Or you'd be kind of like,
There is a sort of macho, like hey, I'm an adult kind of aesthetic with alcohol.
the normalization of people not, having to partake with, because alcohol has always been associated with fun, right? So it's almost like if you weren't drinking, you were not having fun. Other than if you were like the token straight edge or, whatever that may be. When I say token in a nice way possible, there's always like one or two that's just like, I just don't drink, right? But now there's all these other players on the field where, kind of the rise of like the better for you, but then also, you throw in like cannabis and other kind of things in the mix that is legalized, where it's like, yeah, you could be hanging out, maybe you're drinking a THC drink or you had some sort of gummy or whatever it may be. But then the wildest thing too, and this was someone brought this up to me, and I honestly had never thought about it until they brought it. I was like, whoa, my mind just kind of like exploded. Is they were like, think about over the last 20 years, the amount of people, 18 to 26 that are on prescription medication where you actually can't drink to excess or really even drink in general. It was some like insane, growth number, like hundreds of percents. And I was like, oh, that's wild, because again, I'm going to date myself again, but I can remember, when I was in high school, that was kind of the first wave of like, oh, you're having a hard time focusing in school, take all these. And you're like, what the hell is that? And you're like, it's called Adderall and whatever it may be. And,
I remember that.
And then, again, also the rise of like mental health and all that. I mean, just literally Prozac Nation, right? And so all that stuff has now manifested itself and normalized 20 years later. Anyway, so all these, that's the whole thing. It's like all about moments in time and all these things that come into play. And you have that moment in life too, where you're just kind of like, if you see something, you genuinely believe it, and there's enough other people to do, shoot your shot.
And that's what system.
That's what system is. So to even be sitting here right now, 6 months in, people get it. Famous last words. So you want to build a beverage company from the ground up? Because I mean, you're not only building a brand, you're building a company too, which is wild. And the whole analogy was like, yeah, it's kind of like the Italian job. Kind of cherry pick, some of my personal professional heroes from across the board, and especially the Liquid. The Liquid was handwritten by Randy Hughes, who is the former brewmaster for City Brewing. I mean, it's just like one of the most amazing people I've ever met. And, again, just so many people that I'm just like honored, frankly, to have as part of the squad. So
You got like a cast of superheroes on your
So,
system.
something along those lines, superheroes or, a bunch of misspent youths. I don't know,
So-
unhirables, who knows?
Jason Statham did all of your graphic design.
You go to an event, not everybody wants to drink. And you're going to sell a pack that, I could bring to a party that would be shareable amongst everybody. So you're saying that's the inclusivity that you're talking about.
Totally. And that was the big kind of, piece of like, what is system? And you're like, system is the first inclusive drinking system. The concept of inclusive drinking is that, we're finalizing right now a CBD and terpene mix as well, which has been an absolute blast.
I have felt that. And I think that's where a lot of my social anxiety comes from, if I'm being honest. I've felt that at parties in college where or a bar. Like, if you're not holding a thing, you feel out of place, which is, I don't know why I felt that.
I think that's the big. Drinking's the only thing that I can think of that if you're not doing it, you need to have an excuse or a reason. So, and actually, this is a bit that I took from a comedian, so I don't claim it on my own, but it's like, if you don't put mayonnaise on a sandwich, right? No one's like, yo, is everything okay? You all good? By having 3 different color gradients, no one's like clocking your drinking, right? It's like, imagine how weird it would be if someone was like, I noticed, I've been watching over the last couple hours and you've had 4 zeros. Are you not getting engaged with alcohol today? Like, that's super weird. I mean, it's like, you can ask me what I'm wearing or if I wore the same shirt, yesterday too. It's like, that's weird, right? So make it to the point where, again, you're included, right? And the thing is like, yeah, I don't know. I'm having a couple of zeros. Maybe I'll have a 5. Maybe I won't.
And
None of your business, to be honest.
It's
like,
different than like a LaCroix too.
Everybody knows you're not drinking.
But for some reason, I know it's only been a brief moment. I mean, you just started this thing, but it does feel different at the party I had at this home. It felt like I was, I'm actually not trying to like, to inflate your ego here, but it did feel like it was the same level of like, I don't know how you describe it, but like I felt included.
Too.
So maybe that is the word. But it is what I found even more interesting was a lot of people really wanted the zeros and not so much the 8s. That was interesting too. I thought people would want to drink,
Well, so that's the other piece too. So one of the other trademarks that we did acquire is the first non-alcoholic hard seltzer. It's not just a LaCroix, it does have electrolytes and it's part of something bigger than itself. It's part of this system.
All right, I want to go back in time with you. We just started at the end because you had a professional, or and you're continuing to have a professional career in the beverage industry. I think we first met when you first got started. Was that when you were with Schlitz, doing the Schlitz stuff?
Well,
or did you do Schlitz?
Well, I'm going to show you one of my favorite things of all time.
Okay.
I just can't believe it's come full circle and both of you are here with me right now.
I know what you're going to pull out.
I bet you do. Because I love to do it, actually.
He's got a Chrome Excel wallet.
I remember these.
This is the beauty.
So the gold foil has kind of come off, but that's the old style.
But look at how beautiful, with things that are, if you build something that is timeless, right, and has a core, it'll last forever.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's actually what literally, how I got into the beverage industry.
Was Schlitz after this then?
Well, so Schlitz, I was actually just facilitating with the brand manager to make those pieces. So yeah. So that was so I was here running the field and culture marketing, and then especially when Paps moved to Los Angeles, and so with John when he was, kind of repositioning Schlitz, which is a beautiful brand, by the way. I mean, the liquid's phenomenal. That's when you guys were actually both there, I believe, when we turned Logan Square Auditorium into a fully immersive turn of the century, like 1920s, like boxing. And we had the guy from Boardwalk Empire come in. And actually, we wrapped the ring in Horween Leather. If I remember, it was to a T.
I remember making you leather for boxing gloves.
Yes. Oh, that's right.
With Bruce.
With Ray Cologne Boxing. Yeah. I mean, man,
I don't think they were usable because there's like there's actual regulations. Well, the reason I brought that up is because he knew about boxing, and he realized that if you made a leather for the boxing glove that had too much tack to it or too much stick, you would just like rip people's faces apart. So we put special. We thought. Because you told me, yeah, like we're gonna try to use these things to make them look vintage.
Yeah.
So Bruce put on like this more like silicone, I believe, to make it like a little bit more slick, so it wouldn't just like grab people's faces and rip them off.
Yeah, I bet.
So we put in a lot of
silicone
thought to it, and then we're like, he probably can't even use these. Well, tell me more. You know a lot about the scene in Chicago, the community you have here, and you're talking about the hot dogs being relevant. It was actually our first episode we talked about hot dogs of this show. So we
recurring theme.
Yes,
This is the thread that really binds everybody is hot dogs. I mean,
well, what other things? I know maybe in the beverage world, I'm thinking Chicago handshake, but are there other things that are specific to Chicago in terms of like our region's taste?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that I do love about Chicago more than anything is the neighborhood tavern and dive bar culture and scene. So Chicago is obviously a city of neighborhoods, right? And like there's very few actual cities that are like that. And so this whole piece where, dive bars, they're timeless because they come from an era where, those were the localized community centers. And that's what's so beautiful is that you can't fake it. You can't replicate it. It's something that's weaved into the DNA of the actual neighborhoods, which make up this larger city
That's a
structure.
Unique thing to Chicago?
Absolutely.
Really?
I mean, if you think about it, right? I mean,
I don't know any other.
Where else? I mean, I guess you could say maybe New York, but I mean, New York's not a city of neighborhoods, if you will, right? I mean, it's just a whole different scale. But I think that's what's so great is that you go to these spots and they're timeless and each one is different. They are the anchors because if you think about, like, for example, like Lincoln Park, right? Lincoln Park was like Skid Row in the 70s, right? I mean, I even think about like Cole's Bar, for example, or I mean, it's like, they become, or Easy In is actually is a beautiful example of how to take a, kind of this dive bar that was there, but to really kind of and again, a very, very simplistic and classic refresh. And that's the whole piece. Like these things aren't retro, they're classic.
Do you think that those became community centers because of a lot of blue collar jobs? You get off of work at the Tannery maybe and walk across the street to hang out at your...
Absolutely. And that's the whole piece is that it's something that, is close to home. So if you get off, you have go have a pint at your local kind of neighborhood bar versus like these kind of destination spots. And that's what's, again, I mean, you think about even the transition of Chicago in general, and Chicago's always been this kind of like very like blue collar, working class. I mean, we're in the best way possible kind of city, and that's what I mean. Again, built the United States.
Have you guys been to Richard's Bar?
I've never been to Richard's
No,
Bar.
It's next door to Las Corolla.
Way.
Oh, yeah, I have been. I made it as far as the entryway.
Oh,
and I didn't. I just wasn't.
It's a relic.
Timeless.
Yeah,
I don't think
I do love Las Corolla though.
Las Corolla, phenomenal. I mean,
so good,
yeah.
Italian food. But Richard's Bar is walking into history. It's kind of like walking in the Tannery. Like, I don't think they're faking it either. I think that's exactly how it's been for 50 years.
Yeah, and then that's the whole piece. And I'm gonna also I say this every time, but it's like literally one of my favorite Chicago moments of all time. If you're like, what are your top 10 like Chicago moments or things that you will not find anywhere else, is going to the tour of the Tannery. No, seriously, it's amazing. I remember literally you were walking and you were like,
I didn't know you were going to say that. That's not what I was waiting about.
No,
I was like, what should I do?
No. You said it so casually too, but you were like, oh, you see those machines over there? And I was like, yeah. You're like, yeah. There's only 2 of those that exist in the world, and there's 2 of them. And I was like, what? And it was the machine it was the foot pedal machine that it takes the leather, and literally, and then it brings it down to like the right. I mean, they like shave the little pieces off. Mm-hmm. I'm probably giving the most bootleg description of it, but it's like, I mean, and then also, then the person who literally has the tongs and then grades. I mean, you're just like, it's the apprenticeship, right? I mean, how long it must take somebody to learn that, because it's something that, I mean, literally, it's like one of a kind. It's like most interesting man in the world. Give its like run for the money, where you're like, I guess like that position is probably like 3 of in the entire world. I'd say someone who can literally eyeball like leather and say, that's that.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty specific, and that's people ask like, well, so what's your what training do you require to work here? It's like, well, I mean, there's no Like you can't. It's not like you're pulling from the Cordovan shaving pool on
There's no college degree for that.
a ZipRecruiter. I mean, so yeah, everything is from we train it for or everything because it's just there's such specific jobs. But yeah, those machines are. We bought them new in like the 20s or I don't know. I don't know. I mean, they've been there. I mean, I don't even know.
Horween is a working museum.
Oh, I mean,
in the way that Richard's Bar is to me like a working museum.
Okay. And so prime example, and this is what I was just going to say, where they become the anchors and then the world around them changes, but they're still there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and this was one of the things that I didn't know until I started looking deeper into it, is that that whole area around Horween used to be like Tannery Central USA, or I mean, there was tanneries all around it, right? Because now it's like, oh, there's a Best Buy and a Kohl's. Shout out to Kohl's Cash, one of the most genius ideas of all time. They get you. They get you. It's the most like genius.
I never use them. Shout out to Kohl's.
Don't be a monster. Look, literally as he's counting his Kohl's Cash right now. If you can't see this, he's literally just like counting Kohl's Cash.
You're totally right though, because that whole there's actually a business now from our friend John Culleton has a company called the Tannery Row, which was named after that strip of Elston and the river. There were other sections, in my understanding, of the city that had tanneries, but that was like a big strip of them, and they're the last ones. There was one other that went away to Wisconsin about 15 years ago.
Wow.
And that was the second to last one, but I think there were hundreds at one point in time.
I think there were like maybe 3 dozen, which is still a lot though, but they were big, but then all these like the associated industry was here too, like the glove makers and like the shoemakers and stuff. But I mean, the stockyards were here, so all the animals were coming here.
That's right.
So yeah, so the tanneries were, a lot of them were kind of where we are, up and down the river, and then we used to get like barges from the stockyards, and then there was like a rail line that came behind our place too that would go straight down there.
The rails are still there.
They're underneath stuff now, but they're still there.
Yeah, you can see them in certain sections. They break through the asphalt every now and then.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Chicago. And that's so here's what blows my mind. Chicago's not that old, like in the world. So when I go to, like, for us, that's incredible. 100 years is like, wow,
it blows our minds. Yeah, you're like, I can't believe 1920s.
I was in Rome like 4 years ago. To me, that's the coolest thing, is seeing literal layers of history, as you would see in geology or something, like the different strata of the layers of earth. It's like that same thing with history in Rome. So for us, like 100 years is crazy. I went to a wedding in Maine and I flew into Boston, drove up to Maine. And in Boston, even Boston is way older.
Yeah.
Oh, totally.
There was a sign, there's like, hey, this town is like 1750. I'm like, oh my God,
Yeah,
like that's so old. And then you go to Rome and like, this is 3,000 years old.
Totally.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the whole thing. It's like, I remember just like getting like lost in like the back roads of Trastevere when we were in Rome. I'm just kind of like, oh, this is like literally like like people have walked these same streets. But here was actually the wildest thing. So I was in Rome about the same time, maybe 4 years ago, I think.
Pre-pandemic. Yep.
Yeah, it's just time frame. But like, so because I was like, okay, I want to see what like young Italians are like into, you know, like what's like the scene like. And so you're like, okay, you know, we're on this kind of back, you know, we're in the deep cuts, right? And the wildest thing is to see like the permeation of like U.S. culture, but more nostalgic U.S. culture. So the big thing was U.S. culture in like the 40s and 50s.
World War II.
So totally. And so I found one of the most curated stores I've ever seen in my entire life, and it was all like the, you know, like the doo-wop skirts, like vintage, like, you know, shot jackets and all the, you know, kind of like the workwear type stuff. And it was like, whoa. And that was like the scene. And it was like, frankly, it was like the cool. I was like, damn, you guys make this look awesome. Way cooler than anybody in the U.S. But it was.
Why is it that the Axis countries seem to be super into America? Maybe not so much Germany, but I think about Japan.
Oh, with streetwear. I mean, that's the thing, is like the crossover between, you know, U.S. and Japanese streetwear is like a whole different thing too. I mean,
I'm sorry. The reason it's on my mind is I've been listening to this book about World War II and how ruthless Japan. I mean, we were obviously not angels, and Nobu is in war, I guess, but the level of just suicide bombers, like how crazy that is. I didn't know this. They had suicide swimmers that would like swim out to the boats and blow them up. But anyways, that was part of the Axis. So was Italy. And now you're seeing like this reverence for American culture of that time. Seems bizarre to me.
Now that we genuinely exist in a global economy, and this is the whole piece of like, the internet, right? So you think about how like ideas, concepts, trends, whatever it maybe would get across the globe, it would have to be someone physically traveling somewhere and then bringing it back and then permeating. I mean, now you can literally see the entire world at your fingertips. And that's that kind of bigger, like, I always think about the concept of like, how would you explain the internet or a cell phone to a cowboy? And it's that whole concept where you'd be like, well, there's so many layers that you would have to go through, but and also like there's a whole separate conversation about how like, these kind of like emerging like micro scenes like blow up way too fast. It's not even really a scene where usually it would take years for things to kind of grow and to be like, oh man, this is what's happening in, the US or it's happening in the UK or Italy or Japan or whatever. And now it's like you have this like immediate transformation and transmission of
Social
culture.
media, it's pushing
Totally.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, information. Like, information is instantaneous, basically, and that's what makes everything accessible. Which is,
and yet we use all
stressful.
this to dance on TikTok. So I was gonna say, but look, I don't know if all your listeners. Yeah, I saw some wild stat too that was talking about how like like Gen Z is they use TikTok or Instagram basically instead of Google.
Really?
So or they over index on actually like to actually like because I get it where it's like the utility of it where it's like it's real time and I do enjoy where you can learn things, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, but that's where it gets dangerous because those platforms they can choose what they show you.
Oh, yep.
And that's how they get you.
That's
how they sell stuff to you, or that's how they influence what you're thinking or what you're going to buy or where you're going to go.
Well, no, and that's where I got a whole separate conversation, but like, man, there's some real wild, gnarly stuff that you can do where basically it's like you can figure out, because that's the thing, it's like on these devices, right? You can figure out pretty easily, actually, because all the devices, where everything is. So you could understand. Like, so say I wanted to sell toothpaste to you specifically. I could go on the back end and I could see the statistically 5 phones that are most tied in your proximity at all times over the last 3, 6, 12 months. I could actually target those 5 phones, and it also would be based on your age too. And a lot of times this comes down to like if people are about to like have a kid or go to school or whatever it may be. So they can literally it's predictive analytics as well, which is a whole different story. But you could actually geo-target things to those 5 phones, which inherently, whether they even know it or not, and I use toothpaste as such an example, to be like, man, I really love this new toothpaste or whatever. Then you hear that from the 5 people that you are around the most, and it influences you whether you know it or not. So it's a back end of word of mouth. And it almost seems like you can do that, and you're like, that's gnarly. So, that's the one thing too. It's like and I've always been like, the one story that I always kind of tell, and this is the one thing that blew my mind where I was like, I don't trust anything that's put in front of you, right? If something's paid for, or if it's like, so I remember, I'm gonna date myself when text messages, you had to pay by the text message, which sounds crazy. So Verizon came out with the new bundle package. It's got unlimited texting. It's got voice and all this different stuff. And the bundle deal, the bundle package. Turns out, if you do a little bit of research, if you unbundle the bundle package, you actually save more money.
Oh.
Which again defies logic because you think of it was the special bundle package, right? Special bundle package. Okay, great. So I'm like, no, this can't be right. This again doesn't even make sense. So I go into the store and I'm like, yeah, great. Hey, how's it going? They're like, oh, are you here for the special bundle package? That's our new thing. And it's like, yeah, great. Hey, so I had a quick question. This is going to sound totally bizarre. Can you unbundle the bundle package? And the guy was like, no, but you want the bundle package. So that's the special promotion that we're running right now. And I was like, yeah, correct. Okay, great. But just out of curiosity, can you unbundle the bundle package? Well, we do have the bundle package available. And this is one of those where I was like, I'm going to ask you a clear and direct question right now. Can you unbundle the bundle package? Like, and there's other people around, the guy's like, all right, come here. Like, and he goes, yes, technically you can unbundle the bundle package. You have to do a la carte items, blah, blah, blah. I was like, great. Can you please, break that out? Save like $30 a month.
Jeez.
Unbundle it. But again, I'm sitting there, I'm like, it defies logic. So you're like, from a consumer standpoint, it's like, things are not always positioned and put in front of you that are in your best interest. So that's the whole piece, is that, to be a savvy kind of like, consumer, because it's a whole different world. And especially with, technology and also I think the other thing that's so wild is that you can put anything you want on the internet, right? I mean, I can literally like make a website and do all the targeted ads and say the craziest shit in the world that could literally not even be accurate, right? I mean, well, actually, what I was going to say is I think my podcast ads are running right now across all social media, about how great my, Full Grain podcast is, created by Anthony Spina, who completely runs it and owns everything. That's so great to have you guys as guests on my show.
Oh,
but
great.
no,
Yeah. Glad to be here.
that's what I'm saying. It's just like, what? No, this is crazy. You can't say that. And you're like, it's the internet. You can say anything you want. So it's hard to sometimes like discern between fact and fiction. And so that's the big thing that I see as a challenge for the future, is like, how do you disseminate between information that's fact, because also fact is subjective too, and that's what's so wild.
I mean, we had an episode talking about a bit of what you're describing, where we went into some of the terms that the world uses to describe leather goods in terms of marketing. So there's specific language that marketers have used to spin the perception of certain types of leathers, because leather is very confusing. Like, if I told you to describe this leather on your wallet to me, you'd go, like, it's brown, it's kind of shiny.
Well, let me just, it's great. So the great thing about this wallet,
right, yeah,
is actually, so you're looking at, Ashland, of course, Horween Leather. So if you're familiar with Horween, no, I could go on and on.
Well, so that, they would say, oh, this is full grain, genuine leather, and it's got an aniline finish. And you're going like, oh, that sounds interesting and cool, but like, most people don't know what the hell that means.
Well,
and like, who cares?
You can tell them, and how are they going to? They just have to believe you. It's like, it's such a limited, like, vocabulary anyway.
Well, okay, so there's one thing, kind of caveat to that, or to dovetail to a certain point. So the one thing, as we obviously understand that, I'm assuming both of you guys agree that climate change is real.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, yeah. You're like, depends on how you define climate change. And you're like, well, no, but
you actually have to be more specific these days. Well, humans are affecting it.
Yes. And so as we get into a world where that's more of a conversation, and people are, and again, whatever side of the coin that you're on, a lot of times the discussion will lean towards, what's your personal carbon footprint?
Yep.
Then you start talking about the trivialities of, is it the paper straw or the plastic straw, right? You know who actually created that term? Again,
was
carbon.
It the straw maker?
No, it was some of the large oil companies.
Really?
They pumped a lot of money into, again, making that a thing where people can then really focus on their own carbon footprint and how they can help, do these great things. When in reality, we could live, 100 lifetimes, and it's not going to really make an impact more than 10 minutes of some of these, facilities or whatever. And so, but it shifts the thought, right? And then again, people get into like, are you recycling, or don't forget to recycle, or put that in the bag, and these things where you're like, it takes you away from the bigger picture, which of course is very complex, and there's no easy solution. It's so intertwined with everything, and shifting people's mindsets on things. And again, a lot of the stuff is terminology that's made up, which is kind of crazy. So it's like, there's someone.
It works.
Well, totally. I always think about like when you look at toothpaste, for example. I used to work on a think tank for a very large global company. It's like strategists, like their jobs, are like come up with like names for things. Oh, did you know that this is the graded, sorry, I usually like to do this where I pull things that I'm looking at. It's kind of like The Usual Suspects when he's in the office. I was going to do something with the grate that I'm looking at right there. It's oh, do you know it's the graded mic technology? And you're like, the graded mic? And you're like, oh yeah, it's amazing. This is breakthrough technology. And you're like, which literally made that up as a joke. I don't know. It's like, who's Kaiser Soze? you're everywhere and nowhere at once.
I feel like the bundle guy and the carbon footprint guy are like the same guy, like this evil marketing guy that just travels around from company to company.
Well, so imagine those dinner parties though, right? Because they probably all have like some sort of club with there. And it's actually, I remember I read a book called "Toxic Sludge is Good for You," and it's about some of these like PR firms that like kind of come in and they're like how you can shift and position things. But I always wonder if there's like, it's kind of like Doctor Evil and all this stuff, where it's like when they have these dinner parties, right? And they're kind of like who can out evil who, and they're like, oh, you come up with carbon neutral. Well, let me tell you about this. They're like, man, that guy is evil, and it's like, who can out evil who? But I always wonder, like, what are they eating? Is it just like normal food, or is it like real exotic type stuff, or like, then who can like, I don't know, keep pushing the limits?
To tie these couple conversations into one package, I find it really interesting because we were talking about phones and got to this with the marketing. But the interesting thing to me is that the knowledge and the access to knowledge that we have now is so good that people will find somebody like Nick talking about leather, and they'll instantly be able to call BS on whoever's marketing to them, and know that they're sort of getting like tweaked in a certain direction. I think that's a great thing about the technology we have.
Couldn't agree more.
And what ends up happening is like the best stuff rises to the top because people won't be fooled for too long.
And this is where the BS meter, right? I mean, and again, it's not everybody, but for those that really do kind of like seek this kind of stuff out and are real knowledge base. I mean, they can call out inauthenticity and things that are just like BS like real quick, which frankly I think is amazing because we have more access to information, I mean, than literally any other time in human history, which is so wild. I mean, when you really think about it, it's like, knowledge used to always be secret. It was only, really centralized in academia. And again, like even before the GI Bill, academia was only for the elites. I mean, essentially, like not everybody went to college. I mean, and when I say everybody, like the percentage of the population. And so it was always very insular. And so, knowledge was frankly secret. And that's the thing is like now, I mean, you can take online courses for free at some of the top, universities, I mean, in the world. It's kind of remarkable. But the question is, what do you do with it? And going back to, as we both, all of us
evil.
Started our TikTok careers and dancing, I got to figure out my sweet dance moves. But,
I want to go back to where you started. I think we tried to bring this up like an hour ago. But tell me how you got started in the beverage industry.
So I was working for Universal Music Group, running the Island Def Jam record labels for the Midwest, like the promotions. And then we were throwing parties at night. And so we were throwing a party called Rehab at Debonair, which actually won Best Party in the United States.
Congrats.
So that's a real thing, which is I always love bringing it up. It's kind of like so ridiculous. You're like, that's real?
I mean, I had a girlfriend that would go to Debonair. It was like every Tuesday or something like that.
Monday,
yeah.
So I think back and I'm like, damn, that we literally were out every single Monday night for like years. I don't even know how. I mean, it was like, oh my God, it's like dog years. You're like, damn, that's a wild. But
so you started throwing parties for that?
Well, so I was actually hosting it. So it was with, and that's the great thing is like, so literally the scene at Rehab was like, or actually I was joking, I'd be like, yeah, no, we all know each other from Rehab. And I'm like, no, it's a party. It's a party. And everyone was like, you met these people in Rehab? And they're like, when were you in Rehab? And then it was like, that's what's cool. It was this scene where, so it was like Derek Barry, who's now, did Saved by the Max and is now running Bucket Listers. Zach Eastman, who owns Easy Does It. I mean, Clayton Hawk, $1 Million Mano, all these people. And it was just like this whole thing that was really rad. It was this moment when like, like 2009-ish where, like people were literally like dropping out of school to become DJs and then going, from like the house parties into the nightclubs. And it was this whole kind of moment in time, which was an absolute blast. And so I always knew that basically Pabst and Red Bull had at the time like field and culture marketing programs. So that's always like, this is next level. I mean, I guess what is now called like experiential marketing to a certain extent. But so, I ended up, through degrees of connection amongst great people. Next thing you know, in skinny jeans, leather jacket, may have been wearing a fedora, no. But at Pabst, in the Pabst office when they were based in Woodridge, Illinois, and actually started in the Old Style brand. And it's wild. I mean, I had no beverage background. I'd never been to a wholesaler. I mean, I didn't even know what pricing was. I had literally no idea. and was able to kind of, enter in and work my way. I remember one of the things that was like so pivotal is that at one point they fused the field sales and field marketing roles together. And of course, it was like, no way. Like, I don't know. I want to know anything about that, right? It was a total crash course. And one of the things that, next thing I know, I ended up or segueing into brand management for the Old Style brand. And was like, because a brand has been declining for 22 years. I
How long
mean,
did that take? 'Cause you just showed up and they're like, "Yeah, you're the brand manager now."
oh, no, no, no. It was a say. I mean, I had to work. I mean, again, I'm not classically CPG trained. So, I mean, I literally had to kind of like work my way up and navigate.
What is it
And
about you that they would want you to be a brand manager? Like, what did you show them?
Well, so I mean, and, I always one of the biggest things too for all this is having mentors and people who give you a shot and give you a chance. So I mean, there was a CMO at the time, Dan McHugh, and still to this day, I mean, I was never classically CPG trained, right? And the whole thing was like, there was ideas and new school kind of ways of thinking, but I didn't know how to translate it into actually like like a brand plan or like a sit in a boardroom wherever it may be. And without him, I mean, I wouldn't even be here. So it was one of those things that he
Had a
really kind of
shot.
like shepherded me and like helped me kind of like learn really to take ideas and put them into something that's coherent that you can then share, and then also understanding people talk about like sales and marketing. I mean, they have to work hand in hand. You have to have a full scope of the business to really understand all the different facets to be able to kind of make an
And
impact.
if I think back about that brand, not a lot of people were really excited about them.
You know,
And it seems like you kind of spun it in a different direction. Like, what was the key to make Old Style cool again?
well, so I think one of the things
Or cool
too.
again? Is that the right word?
Well,
Like
no, and
relevance.
no, well, no, and thank you. Because if you're chasing cool, you've already lost. Cool is fleeting, right? I mean, the whole thing, that's the joke. Is like there's nothing more than when you're like trying to like suckle off the teeth of cool, right? I mean, you're already 3 steps behind then. So the
Like,
piece
it
is
was
that
like your grandpa's beer. Ha ha ha.
wasn't. I mean, old style is beautiful, and that was the biggest thing is that it had been through so many different kind of brand iterations and all these different things. And the one big thing for me, and as put my flag in the ground, and frankly, I was like, look, I'll put my job on the line for this. Frankly, I believe in is to go back to the classic, the 1977 classic white can. And again, it's not retro, it's classic, but something that has meaning. So, and that kind of defies a lot of the thoughts. So I was like, you have to be new, you have to appeal to this new generation. You're like, that's the whole thing, right? Because culture is cyclical. So you can remember if you're in, again, 21 to 35, that was the beer that you can remember in the context of your mind. So go back to the classic can, but then bring it and infuse it. And this is where field and culture marketing comes into play. And that's the whole piece where I kind of cut my chops. Was like, I mean, I didn't go to school to figure out how to spend money on billboards and all this other kind of stuff and just move money around. I was like, no, you have to actually like play a tangible role in culture. You have to actually be there. But more importantly, you have to create. And that's the biggest thing is that you don't sponsor things, you create things. You have to actually play a meaningful role in society. And that's the big piece. And that's the kind of change maker. So to take a beautiful brand like Old Style, I mean, again, that's why I still have the wallet. I mean, I'll remember for the rest of my life because it was someone told me it was career suicide. They said, don't take that job. You'll never change it. You will never, ever turn Old Style positive. I don't care how good you are or whatever it may be. And it's actually one of the only times I cried in a bar, to be honest. I was actually out with the wholesalers. The other thing too is that there's sales, marketing, trade marketing, but more importantly, wholesalers, right? Your wholesalers, everything. The guys that are actually on the street, you got to be out there with them. You have to be in the trenches, right? So I was actually out with some of the wholesalers, and I got the email. I was like, holy shit, we did it. And it totally threw me off. I remember I was standing there, and I was kind of like, yeah, that's a sensitive dude. I got a little choked up, And I remember I looked at me and I go, holy shit. Okay. Well, wow. Didn't expect that. Everybody thought I just figured out I gotten fired. So everyone goes, Spina, well, I mean, no, dude, what? No, you'll be okay. No, you'll be fine. I mean, like, and I go, no, guys, we fucking did it. It's positive. We turned it. And what was magical about it is that it was this moment in time where, we went back to the classic 1977 packaging. we also returned Old Style to its original brewing in G. Heilman. That's actually how I met Randy Hughes, who did the System Liquid. We
Mm-hmm.
did the first innovation, in decades with Old Style Oktoberfest, Cooler by the Lake Radler, all this great stuff. And to this day, it was also my biggest thing was like, if you time this right, the Cubs are going to win the World Series. I swear to God, I literally said this on a conference call, and someone was like, Spina, I don't know if we can, like fully, like put everything on your field of dreams. And I was like, I'm telling you this, look at this, literally. So all the hair on like my arms stood up because I was like, there's going to be a moment in time when an entire generation looks down, the Cubs win the World Series, and they're going to see that iconic 1977 packaging that their father and grandfather drank, and it's literally going to reignite and bring this back to where it should be because it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is that like you have to be all in. There's no other way to do this stuff because it's like the second that you start playing everybody else's game and you don't fully believe it, like you have to eat, sleep, and breathe it. So it was one of the things that proudest moments, just because you have to believe and you have to see a bigger vision.
So when you started at Old Style, the sales were declining, and you were able to
Totally. I mean, it was.
you were
not
spun
good.
it around in a positive direction just in time for the Cubs to win the World Series in was that 2016?
Yeah, that was.
Man.
It was wild.
How did you end up with the White Claw brand?
Oh well, so this is the whole thing. It's like not only are there magical brands, but there's magical people too. So when I first went to Pabst, I mean, there was this core team. I mean, it was just Sanjeev Gajrawala, Zach Nadili, Justin Kelly, Keith Hill. I mean, this amazing group, right? I mean, and Nick Osborne, all these, if I'm forgetting anybody, I don't know, but it's like all these just like people, and it was so cool because it was just kind of like this moment in time. Again, much like you talk about like the rehab party, right? It's like with certain brands. And so some of the former Pops guys had gone over to Mark Anthony brands and, be kind of casually talking. And they're like, hey, come on over. It's like, dude, there's something happening here. This is really cool. I was like, all right, cool. And so I kind of reached that point where I was like, I'm not some classically trained CPG guy. And I was like, dude, all I ever wanted to do in my entire life was not only make a positive impact on culture from a brand standpoint, but like for me, it was Old Style. That's where I started and that's where I finished. And I was like, where do I go? I don't,
You're going to retire with the championship
well, no,
belt.
or it's like Seinfeld, you leave on top, right? And so you're like, all right. So
I'm out.
I end up, I'm at first and first, Jerry. No, it's
But White Claw wasn't an existing brand, right?
Well,
this was a new thing.
So this was the thing that was so, I mean, a lot of this stuff it's about right place, right time, right people, and these magic moments that happen. So when I got to Mark Anthony brands, White Claw had been around for I want to say it was like 2 years maybe, and so it was something that I'll never forget. I mean, I was like, oh my god. I mean, I think I was like 6 months in, and I was like, holy shit, something's happening here, because it was this. I mean, it's wild to think that like hard seltzers, concept did not exist like 6 years ago, right? This is something completely new to the world. When you look right now, hard seltzers are 10% of the total US beer category, which is frankly remarkable. But with White Claw, the big thing, it was the same feeling with PBR, where it was like, oh my God, you tapped into something bigger than yourself. And that was the thing when we were doing, so I started with Old Style, but then I was, running the PBR like field marketing in Chicago. And so the biggest thing that we always just say is that none of us are cool, right? Like we are shepherds, we are stewards of something that has meaning to a lot of people. And so it was like, oh my God, I mean, people embraced White Claw. People embraced, and again, we say hard seltzers, is that the big thing was that it was one of the first case studies to be gender neutral. And also it became a lifestyle brand. And so the big thing is that you can't buy that. You can't fake it. The question is, what do you do with it?
Were you able to achieve that success by following the same playbook that you used on the other and starting with your parties on Monday night?
Well,
like the same sort of concepts there?
So here's the big, when you can create the infrastructure and the plan that, I mean, first off, you can't manufacture stuff like that. I mean, you can build an ecosystem that can embrace it, but it has to happen organically. And so
Yeah.
even if a seedling of organic, then you have to have the infrastructure ready to even engage with that, but then also pour some gas on it too. And that's the biggest thing, is being able to put things in the right places and kind of playing this like I always kind of give the analogy of like Kaiser Soze. How do you be everywhere and nowhere at once? And that's part of the magic, and this kind of like, the utilization, creation of genuine field and culture marketing
Yeah.
will always win. I mean, that's the piece.
That, to me, that's your superpower, is creating community, I think, is what I see from you.
Nail on the head is that you build something that's bigger. Because again, a brand is a brand, but if you're something, bigger than oneself, and it's something, and also more importantly, bringing people together. So that's kind of cool, is that, so I talk about like gender neutral, but then also being able to operate in different facets of society and different groups. And, again, it's a special moment. So, I mean,
Well, that brings me to sort of like where we're at. What just happened 2 weeks ago seems like the culmination of your professional history, right?
that was something.
Tell me. So Riot Fest, how did you play a role in Riot Fest?
Well, okay, so I say, and first and foremost, I've looked up to Riot Fest. You talk about building community, doing something brick by brick. I mean, Riot Fest set the book. I mean, especially Mike Patrician too, is like, it started in Mike and Sean. It's like, one venue, 3 venues, 5 venues. Next thing you know, it's an outdoor. I mean, it's like you build a community, right? And it's done for all the right reasons. And the reasons are, again, just like genuine love and like genuine, like, passion, authenticity, something that, you're like, this has meaning to it, right? And so, Mike and I, we go way back. And, one of those things when we first kind of brought this out.
Mike is the founder for Riot Fest.
And some of his, and it's his whole staff and people that he, say staff, I mean, his whole crew, essentially, they're just, it's awesome. It reminds me of old school Paps. I mean, it's just like a collective of good, great people. The long story short was like, well, hey, what if we created a brand? Again, that's kind of like a festival exclusive. And the cool thing is that when you're dealing with people that, it's like, it's not like, it's just super organic, and you just want to do, the old adage, like, you just want to do cool shit with your friends. So next thing you know, Riot Pop was created. But the cool thing too is that that was the first time in the history of the United States where, it wasn't like Riot Fest creates a hard seltzer. You're like, oh, okay, cool. It's like, no, this is something that is bigger. It's a reflection of the community, but also it's the first time in the history of, to my understanding, of the U.S. festival, and beyond, the debut of the first inclusive drinking system. And the big thing is that, the Riot Fest community is, they're so passionate and they're so loyal and they're so dedicated, and it really brings something that had never been done to include everybody. Because that's what Riot Fest literally is, where it's like, this is a community where everybody is welcome, everybody's involved. And so, to stand there and see something where you're like, oh my God, this works. Because, I mean, to be honest, like, the whole concept of the first inclusive drinking system at the beginning was like, am I losing my mind? I mean, like, seriously, it's like, you think your brown beer is pretty good, but to see people really embrace it, and also to be very like vocal about it, and to be like, oh wow, I don't drink, or this and that, or I'm, now there's something for me. I feel included.
Did you have the 058 there?
Oh yeah, yep,
Oh,
absolutely. And
Riot Pop was alcoholic.
Oh yeah. So it was 0, 5, and 8%, and so again,
I thought like pop is a very Midwest thing for like
well,
Coca-Cola,
well,
soda.
So that's the other thing too, is that understanding kind of like where you are, and pop is a very regionalized kind of thing. Also, that the other great thing too is always making sure that you're being legal, compliant, etc. So there actually are a lot of there's actually 7 different alcoholic beverages that do use the word pop currently on the market.
Really?
So we run everything through our
we you're gonna be careful.
Totally. I was gonna say, make sure that everything's
I don't know if you knew what he did there, but at Riot Fest they made a specific drink for the event.
Yeah, I got that.
Which is incredible. And the brown, I got to show you the branding after we're done here. It's a throwback to like the 90s, 80s.
Dan Wade did such a good. I mean, literally, it's like that was. I mean, working hand in hand with the team. 'Cause I mean, it's like it's
You
people
built like
that
a
I've
skateboard like half pipe.
put a
and,
half
like,
pipe in the middle of the festival, and that's so like when you're working hand in hand with people who, again, it's passion, it's real, and so it's like my favorite thing is like I'll take any good idea as far as to go until a lawyer or an accountant literally tells me that it's like impossible, and then it's like, yeah, let's put a half pipe. No sane person would say absolutely. Oh wait, okay, cool, let's do it. I mean, getting that across the board, and then again having like Aloha Worldwide team, and again like all the people involved. It wasn't like some agency put this together. It literally was just like tapping friends, and that
and
was
what
the
do you
great
call
thing.
this type of market? Because it seems like that example is what you've been doing from White Claw.
So basically, field culture,
Culture
yeah.
marketing.
I mean,
I mean,
yeah. I mean,
I
there's
think it's awesome.
well, and I go. I mean, basically, what it distills down to, and that was the biggest thing too with building system from day one, is that we want to build it with people that cannot be bought. When I say people that can't be bought, is that they're doing things with purpose, intent, and meaning. And so that's what's special about it is, basically the world, personally and professionally, the way I live is 3 degrees of connection amongst great people. Hence, literally, there's three of us right now
Yeah.
on the most amazing podcast in the entire world, talking about, again, just things that have meaning to them.
There's so much to talk to you about. I know we got to wrap it up here.
I think it's. I was say one thing. I think
Yeah.
it's interesting as I listen to hear that
Taking
you
a
were.
selfie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
nice. Hear you. You've got this skill. It seems like to identify things that should be new or things that should change, and then things that shouldn't. And I think that people are always trying to stick their hands in and make something new all the time. And I think that taking that old can is an example of you've got something that's already there. There's no reason to make things complicated. But then you've got this idea for this 0% hard seltzer too, which is kind of the other side of it. So I think that that's an interesting,
You got a
it's an interesting
superpower.
skill set.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, my whole thing is like, look, times may change, some things stay the same, and everybody's a different kind of like context on how they view the world. And a lot of times people say, well, there's nothing new, everything's been done. Well, I'll use Vampire Weekend for an example, which I love, by the way. Everyone's like, yeah, this is literally just Paul Simon, right? Or whatever. And it was kind of like, yeah, but to someone who's never heard that before, this is completely new, just kind of like positioned in a way that's presented, as something like new and special. So,
I mean, I want to end it with one more thing that you've worked with all these larger names that a lot of people know. There's another thing that you do that one of my rooms upstairs is decorated with. The Chicago Pizza Summit, which we haven't even talked about.
Oh my gosh, total labor of love.
It's another example of such a fun like community thing. We first episode we talk about hot dogs. Another famous Chicago thing is the pizza. Give me like a 1 minute wrap up here on the Pizza Summit, and are you going to do another one?
Absolutely. So 30 seconds is, again, I love pizza more than anything. I've had to ask a doctor literally like, if I eat like too much pizza, are there health implications? The great thing also, if a doctor told me this, is that pizza actually does, if you do it right, consist of all the major food groups.
Does it have electrolytes?
So, well, I mean, it's what people crave, obviously. You can put electrolytes in anything. No, but so I mean, you can get actually all your key food groups through pizza, which is magical. But anyway, side note. But no, so the whole thing was like, you're like, how has nobody brought together all like the key pizza? I mean, this is the greatest pizza city in the world. How has nobody put this
Shots
thing
fired.
together? I'll put that flag in all day. But so it's like, that's what's so amazing, and it wasn't easy. I mean, there's this whole separate story of how it came together. But if you get a bunch of people in a room, and the three tenets of Pizza Summit: community, friendship, dialogue. Simple as that. And what happens when you basically say, "Hey, great, come literally be around the pizza community, and this is a celebration for us all." It became a thing that I never even realized would be as big as it did. It grow sequentially year over year. One of the biggest challenges has been, with the pandemic. I mean, again, that's where you always go back to the three tenets, right? Community, friendship, and dialogue. We will never put our community at risk. We always want to have dialogue. And again, friendship is based on those things. So, with the kind of like uncertainty of the pandemic and things like that, we said, look, let's just put it on pause for now, especially, it's been challenging, but when we come back, which we will, it's going to be bigger than ever. And
Nice.
that'll be one of the greatest moments as well, probably akin to Riot Pop and the first inclusive drinking system debut.
I'm one of the most fun things I've ever been to was that and the boxing event. Everything you do is gold.
I think for the marketing, you just say pizza kills COVID, and then you should be all set.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just internet stuff anyway.
You know, to be honest, I actually got that tattooed on my neck. I can't turn around, but it was one of those things where I was like, "Dang, might as well roll the dice, right?" So
I know you got to go.
awesome. Thank you, like guys. Honestly,
Thanks.
It's been
You're the
an
best.
absolute honor and privilege to be here. You two are.
Thank
two
you
of
for
the
bringing by
greatest
some
to-
drinks,
no,
too.
seriously, this is awesome.
This is great. All right, we'll see you.
Thanks.
We'll see you later. Let's do it again sometime.
See you next time.
Anytime.